The Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The ninth election in Canadian history happened on November 7th, 1900, where there were two major party candidates. There was the Liberal leader, Wilfrid Laurier, who had just won in 1896, and Charles Tupper, the leader of the Conservative Party, who had just lost in 1896. Laurier got his leader seat in Quebec East, and Charles Tupper got his in Cape Breton, but lost re-election. If you were to have watched my last video, you would have known when these two got their leaders since, but if you didn't, Wilfrid Laurier got his leader since in 1887 and Charles Tupper in 1896, following the resignation of Mackenzie Bowell. And for the map, all that changed for Canada is the addition of the Yukon Territory out of the Northwest Territory, which realistically isn't going to do much as they couldn't even vote in this election. Understandably, as it's only been 2 years since their integration into the country. So now let's get into the epically insane stuff now. For this election, there was 213 seats in the House of Commons, exactly like the 1896 election. Now you may think I'm on the wrong Wikipedia page, but I'm actually on the correct one. There was, of course, 107 seats needed for a majority. And proof that I'm on the right Wikipedia page is that last time there was about 64% turnout. Now there's 77.4% turnout. Spiking turnout considering the last one, which was absolutely crazy. Which was the lowest, the last election, and this one is actually one of the highest in all of Canadian history. And next up, the popular vote. Wilfrid Laurier actually won this one last time after winning the election, but losing the popular vote, becoming the first Canadian Prime Minister to do such. He won this time with 477,758, and Charles Tupper getting 438,330. For the percentage, Laurier got 50.3%, and Charles Tupper got 46.1%. And now, for the winner, who would become Prime Minister? Or at least get re-elected? The correct answer would be Wilfrid Laurier, as he won a second seat in office. While no former Prime Minister died from between this election and the next election, Her Majesty Queen Victoria passed away on just January 22nd, 1901, under Wilfrid Laurier's second term. And I'll see you guys for the next Edwardian-era Prime Minister election of 1904. The Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History! The 10th election in Canadian history happened on November 3rd, 1904, where there were two major party candidates. There was the Liberal leader, Wilfrid Laurier, who was the incumbent Prime Minister, and Robert Borden, the leader of the Conservative Party. Wilfrid Laurier got his leader seat in Quebec East, but also was elected in Wright. He chose to sit for Quebec East instead and resigned as the Member of Parliament for Wright.
Robert Borden got his leader's seat in Halifax but lost a re-election. In the map, only Yukon's border was adjusted.
In the House of Commons, there was 214 seats, and obviously 108 seats needed for the majority in the House of Commons to become Prime Minister of Canada, or in Wilfrid Laurier's case, of course, re-elected. Wilfrid Laurier got his leader since in 1887, as we know from watching the last couple of elections. But Robert Borden got his in 1901, which was 1 year after Charles Tupper did not become leader of the Conservative Party. This election also had 71.6% turnout, which was only 5.8% less than last time.
The winning vote was 521,041 votes, and the percentage was about 50.9%.
So, with that all said, the winner of the election would be Wilfrid Laurier with 137 seats to Robert Borden's 75.
I'll see you guys in the next election of 1908.
The Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 10th election occurred on October 26, 1908, with two major party candidates. There was a Liberal Party leader, Wilfrid Laurier, who got his leader seat in Quebec East, but was also elected in the city of Ottawa district, but he chose to sit for Quebec East and resigned as Member of Parliament for Ottawa, and was leader of the Liberal Party since 1887. Whereas Robert Borden got his leader seat in Halifax, and was also elected in Carleton, but just like Laurier, he chose to sit for Halifax and resigned in Carleton, and was leader of the Conservative Party since 1901. And for the map, the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan are created from the Northwest Territories and the District of Keewatin. The rest of the District of Keewatin was later reincorporated into the Northwest Territories, officially dissolving the District of Keewatin. And with no former prime ministers or British monarchs dying, let's get into the epically insane stuff now. In the House of Commons, there was an increase in seats, this time to 221 seats in the House of Commons and 111 needed for a majority. And the winner had 570,311 votes out of the 70.3% of the people that turned out to vote. Wilfrid Laurier, who did win the popular vote, got 48.9% of the percentage. But just remember, in the 1896 election when he ran against Charles Tupper, he did lose the popular vote but end up winning. Did he win in 1908, though? That's what we're about to find out. With 137 seats to the opposition's 75 seats, the Prime Minister of Canada would be re-elected Wilfrid Laurier, who would come in for a third term in office. Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 11th election in Canadian history was a called-upon election by current Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier to go up against at least Conservative Party leader Robert Borden, who was leader of the Conservative Party since 1901, and for this election, he got his leader seat in Halifax, while Laurier was leader since 1887, as we know, by a lot. And he got his leader seat in two different seats. Soulanges, which was an electoral district in Quebec, and Quebec East, and, he was elected in both, but chose to serve concurrently as the Member of Parliament for both, instead of, like in previous elections, but Laurier was actually guilty of this a couple elections ago, where he was elected in both and resigned as Member of Parliament for one of them. And this is the first election in Canadian history where the map was the exact same from the 1908 map into the 1911 map. So nothing changed between any provinces, anything abroad. It's the same thing, which is a surprise to me and most Canadians probably living back then anyways. Now let's get into the goodly, epically stuff now. For this election, there was 221 seats in the House of Commons, just like for the last election, and there's also 111 seats needed for a majority, obviously. And now for the stats, there was 70.2% voter turnout, which was just 0.1% less than last time, so people really thought that there must have been something interesting in this election for 0.1% of the population to vote less. But anyways, so there was 632,539 votes for the winner, as well as 48.56% of the popular vote, which was actually pretty close to the losers, 45.82%. And with 132 seats, meaning that he would get re-elected or elected, the new Prime Minister of Canada would be Robert Borden. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1917. Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 11th election in Canadian history happened in 1917, specifically December 17th, 1917. You may ask yourself, well, isn't there a constitutional requirement to be at least in the last 4 or 5 years? Yes, that's true, but due to World War I, or as they called it back then, the Great War, since it was going on, the Constitution was, something happened there. The Parliament of Canada let them have a 1-year extension for the 1917 federal election, which consisted of 2 major party candidates. There was Robert Borden, the leader of the not the Conservative Party, that's out of the picture right now. It's the Government Unionist Party, which was a center-right political party in Canada, composed primarily of the Conservative Party leaders, Robert Borden during World War I, just to combat Wilfrid Laurier. Laurier came back at this with no longer being part of the Liberal Party leader. He was now leader of the opposition party, or the Laurier Liberals, which was also a party from the Liberal Party being cut in half with the Laurier fans and the non-Laurier fans. But overall, that's just basically it's Conservative Party versus Liberal Party again. Nothing to be excited about. Let's hear what former Prime Ministers Mackenzie Bowell and Charles Tupper have to say about this election. Oh wait, they're dead. That's correct. Charles Tupper was the 5th Prime Minister to die on October 30th, 1915 of heart failure, and Mackenzie Bowell was the 6th on December 10th, 1917 of pneumonia. What about, the monarch, King Edward VII? Well, he actually died before the last election. I forgot to talk about that, so yeah, we kind of have a new guy in. These two, their parties, just started. But if you really want to talk about the Conservative and Liberal Party, Robert Borden was leader in 1901 and Laurier in 1887. Borden was leader of the Unionist Party on October 10th, 1917 when it was formed, and Laurier was leader of the Liberal Party in 1917. It doesn't say when the exact date was formed. Wilfrid Laurier got his leader's seat in Quebec East, but also ran in the City of Ottawa district, but he was defeated. That's kind of embarrassing, not gonna lie, Laurier. Robert Borden got his leader's seat in Kings. Woo! Cue the music. Okay, that's good. And now let's get into the epically insane stuff now. For this election, there was 235 seats in the House of Commons, which means 118 seats needed for a majority. There was 75.0% turnout, so just on the dot, 75% turnout, which was 4.8% higher than it was in the last election. The winner of this election broke the 1 million votes mark with 1,070,694 votes, 56.93% of the popular vote, and 153 seats. And the re-elected Prime Minister would be Sir Robert Borden, who won against Laurier in this election. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1921. Tazad 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 12th election in Canadian history happened on December 6, 1921, where there were 6 major party candidates. There was a Liberal leader, William Lyon Mackenzie King, awesome name, who was leader of the party since 1919 and got his leader's seat in Prince and was a candidate in North York. There was Progressive Party leader just 9 years after Theodore Roosevelt's Progressive Party in 1912. The leader of that party, Thomas Crayar, who was leader in 1920 when the party was founded, and who got his leader's seats in Margate. There was Conservative leader Arthur Meehan. Wait, what happened to Robert Borden? Borden actually resigned the year earlier because of a few laws that came into place, so Meehan was appointed to be his successor. his was leader since in 1920. Well, it's just, he got his leader seat in Portage la Prairie and lost re-election. There was Independent Labour Leader Party, J.S. Woodsworth, who got his leader seat in Winnipeg Centre and was leader of the party since 1921. There was the United Farmers of Alberta Party, which nominated Herbert Greenfield as their leader in 1921, and they didn't even run. So don't even think about a leader seat. They didn't even run. Let's see if there was a reason. Well, there wasn't. So yes. There was also the United Farmers of Ontario Party in 1919. Their leader was MSC Drury, which also did not run. That is just insane. Nothing just in time for this election changed on the map, but Wilfrid Laurier did die on February 17th, 1919, becoming the 7th Prime Minister to die. He died of a stroke in Ottawa and is now buried there as well. Now let's get into the goodness of these videos. The actual election. For this election, there were 235 seats in the House of Commons, meaning that 108 seats at the very minimum will give you the Prime Minister office with a majority-ruled parliament. You know what I'm talking about. I hope so. For this election, there was 67.7% turnout, which was 7.3% less than last time, which is just absolutely crazy. And so, with 1,285,998 votes, that equals 41.15% of the popular votes, giving them 118 seats. The Prime Minister of Canada would be William Lyon Mackenzie King, and Thomas Crerar of the Progressive Party finished in second with 58 seats, Arthur Meighen in third with 49 seats, J.S. Woodsworth in fourth with 3 seats, Herbert Greenfield in fifth with 2 seats, and MSC Drury with 1 seat finishing in last. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1925. Dazod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 14th election in Canadian history happened on October 29th, 1925, where there were 5 major party candidates, one less from last time. There was Arthur Meighen, leader of the Conservative Party since 1920, and he got his leader seat in Greenville, but also was a candidate in Portage la Prairie. William Lyon Mackenzie King, the leader of the Liberal Party, who's leader since 1919 in York North but lost re-election. Robert Fork was the leader of the Progressive Party since 1922 and got his leader's seat in Brandon for this election. There was J.S. Woodworth, the leader of the Independent Labour Party since 1921 and got his leader's seat in Winnipeg North Centre. And then there was also Herbert Greenfield from the United Farmers of Alberta Party since 1921 and does not have a leader seat for this election because he just simply didn't run for one. For this election, there was a total of 0 changes to the map and 0 former prime ministers dying. And rather quickly, let's move on to the House of Commons. There was 245 seats in the said House of Commons, meaning that 123 seats needed to be obtained to get a majority government for the next couple of years until the next election. I'm not going to spoil it. For this election, there was 66.4% voter turnout, which was 1.3% less. And so, with 115 seats won, which means it would be a minority government, but the person who won this election would still become prime minister. 454,253 votes, and 46.13% of the popular vote, the winner of the 1925 Canadian election would be Arthur Meehan, with William Lyon Mackenzie King getting 100 seats on the dot, Robert Fork getting 22, J.S. Woodworth getting 3, and Herbert Greenfield getting 2. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1926. Dazod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History! The 15th election in Canadian history happened on September 14th, 1926, where there were 3 major party candidates. There was John E. Brownlee of the United Farmers of Alberta Party. There was Arthur Meehan, the current incumbent Prime Minister, who is leader of the Conservative Party since Robert Borden's resignation in 1920, who got his leader seat for this election in Portage la Prairie, but lost re-election. And there was also the Liberal leader William Lyon Mackenzie King, leader since 1919, and got his leader seat in Prince Albert. But interestingly, for this election, there was the Progressive Party as a major party, but they had no nominee. That's right, they had no leader, and the Progressive Party was just kind of there with no leader. So, that's interesting. While there was a couple changes to the map, which I won't show because Wikipedia doesn't even show it, but it was just maritime borders. There was also no prime ministers or monarchs that died in between the last election, which was the year prior to now. So, yeah, let's get into the stuff now, I guess. So there was 245 seats in the House of Commons, 123 seats needed to get a majority government, and so there was 67.7% turnout in this election, which is 1.3% higher than last time. And now, with 1,397,031 votes, which was actually less than the second place candidate, and 42.9% of the popular vote, again 3% less than the second place candidate, and 116 seats won. With a minority government, the next Prime Minister would be William Lyon Mackenzie King, with, of course, 116 seats. That second place candidate, Arthur Meehan, had 1,476,834 votes and 45.35% of the popular vote. John E. Brownlee from the United Farmers of Alberta Party had just 11 seats won with 60,000 votes and 1.87% of the popular vote. And that Progressive Party with no leader got 11 seats. You're already smelling the demise of this party, and 128,060 votes with 3.93% of the popular vote. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1930. Dazod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 16th Canadian election happened on July 28, 1930. But to understand the whole real reasoning behind this election, you gotta go 2 years back and into the United States of America. After President Warren Gamaliel Harding died on August 2nd, 1923, Vice President John Calvin Coolidge Jr. assumed the office of President of the United States. But in 1928, he chose not to run for a third term, claiming that 10 years was longer than anyone before him until Franklin Roosevelt, and it was too long for a president to serve, stepping down for Herbert Hoover to become the Republican nominee to go up against the Democratic nominee, Al Smith. Hoover absolutely smacked the election, winning all but the states of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, winning 58.2% of the popular vote and 444 electoral votes. Soon after Herbert Hoover took office, just about a couple months, in August of 1929, the stock market crashed, leading to the Great Depression, which was mostly on Herbert Hoover. This affected every country in the world, including Canada. So let's hop right back into 1930. So William Lyon Mackenzie King apparently failed to notice that this was happening, and especially in Canada, leading to mass unemployment in the country, and also leading to conservative outroar. And they had very, very, very much confidence for this upcoming election. After Arthur Meehan stepped down as the conservative leader, they nominated R.B. Bennett for the conservative leader in 1927 and got the leader seat from Calgary West. William Lyon Mackenzie King, of course, since 1919, after Laurier's death, got his leader seat from Prince Albert. There were other major party candidates, the Progressive Party, who still didn't have a leader, and the United Farmers of Alberta Party, who also, they didn't choose to run for a leader's seat, just like in the last election. And this election, just like the previous three, had 245 seats in the House of Commons, and 123 needed for a majority government. William Lyon Mackenzie King actually got a minority government, which means he did not get 123 seats. A couple of elections ago, I kind of forgot. And with that, I think it's fair to jump right into the stats. So for this election, there was 73.5% turnout, 5.8% more than the last one, probably due to the Great Depression. And for the winner stats, they had 47.79% of the popular vote. Barely above the losers, actually 44.03%. And the winner also got 1,863,115 votes and 137 seats won, which is a majority government. And it would be a conservative majority government with R.B. Bennett's victory in this election. William Lyon Mackenzie King snatched up 89 seats, 1,760,798 votes, 44.03% of the popular vote. John E. Brownlee of the United Farmers of Alberta got 9 seats, 1.46% of the popular vote, 56,968 votes, and the Progressive Party was 70,822 votes, 1.82% of the popular vote, but only 3 seats. Just after this election, the Progressive Party would officially crumble to no return, and the Progressive Party would finally die just after this election. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1935. The Zod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History! The 17th election in Canadian history happened on October the 14th, 1935. Incumbent Prime Minister R.B. Bennett got us out of the Great Depression, although it was still happening in other countries, but his popularity was on the mega decline and was going more in favor for William Lyon Mackenzie King, the Liberal leader since 1919, who was a major party contender here. He got his leader seat for this election in Prince Albert, and R.B. Bennett, of course, leader since 1927, and got his leader seat for Calgary West. There were 3 other major party candidates. There was J.S. Woodsworth, who was the leader of the United Farmers of Manitoba Party, but now is the leader of the Cooperative Commonwealth Party since 1932 and got his leader seat in the Winnipeg North Centre. H.H. Stevens got his leader seat in Coterie East. Since 1935, he was the leader of the Reconstruction Party. And then William Aberhart, who was the leader of the Social Credit Party since 1935. This was due to Franklin Roosevelt, incumbent president of the United States' policies on social credit. I didn't elaborate. Why was R.B. Bennett's popularity going towards the pits? Well, the reason is because the Great Depression may have ended under his watch, but the economy was still horrible. It was absolutely horrible under R.B. Bennett. It's like we still were in the Great Depression, just technically we weren't. And he also, just like William Lyon Mackenzie King 5 years prior, failed to notice the rising unemployment in the country. This led to the creation of the Reconstruction Party and H.H. Stevens' split from the Conservative Party. And I guess with that said, we can go straight into the election. This election had 245 seats in the House of Commons, again, meaning 123 seats would be needed for a majority. This election had 74.2% turnout, just so we could bash on Bennett, who actually we won't talk about. The winner here got 1,967,839 votes, which was the most up to that point, almost breaking the 2 million mark, getting 44.68% of the popular vote. And so with that, the winner for all these stats and 173 seats would be Liberal leader William Lyon Mackenzie King. This would be the third straight time King was inaugurated. R.B. Bennett finished second with 1,290,671 votes, accounting for 39 seats. William Aberhart of the Social Credit Party got 180,679 votes, getting 17 seats. J.S. Woodsworth of the Cooperative Commonwealth Party got 7 seats, in which 99.31% of the popular vote and 410,125 of the votes. And then H.H. Stevenson's Reconstruction Party getting 1 seat and 384,462 votes. And I'll see you guys for the election of 1940.